Finally back again this week, and this week we have Rick Michael King to the side of me. Oh, look at that! I got it right this time. And Rick Michael King is a very interesting fellow because he is the spiritual futurist, and this is talking about all the different things that we don't want to talk about. It's talking at a deeper level of our intuition, spirituality, a metaphysical type of universe that a lot of people sort of delve into but not really sure how to delve into. Rick Michael has actually done a reading for me, and it has opened up a lot of things in my path, and given me a lot of clarity, and has opened up a few other things that I never knew anything about myself. So, Rick Michael, thank you. We're honored for you to be here this week. Could you tell us more about what is this spiritual futurist mean to you?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me along. Okay, so spiritual futurist. We are in very interesting, shifting times. No surprise, everyone's experiencing it, everyone's seen it. Whether on an individual level, community level, national level, global level, we are going through what I like to call birthing pains. Almost like how a caterpillar goes into its chrysalis, becomes a butterfly. So, as a spiritual futurist, my job is to help make that transition somewhat easier and help people tap into that core part of themselves that is also shifting and the changes they're going through, and to, I guess, validate it, authenticate it. I don't like using the word normal or normalize because I don't think anything is normal, but to, validate it and to authenticate the person's experience and what they're going through, and just pre-warn and give the tools and the recipe, I guess, for what's to come, and evolve those things about us, particularly our spirituality as well.
I like how you mentioned normal, because normal is so different today. Normal is all these different distractions that are put in front of us, all the different vibrations of fear and anxieties are being pushed across. The war has created all this anxiety. The COVID has created a lot of these anxieties and fears, and it's put us at a point of low vibrations. And I know you understand vibrations and energy. Could you give us could you give the viewers an idea of what you think energy is for you?
Energy for me is pretty much everything, but as in human energy terms, because we've got our electricity energy and all of that kind of stuff, but in human terms, it's about that electromagnetic field that we have around us, and especially our heart has an electromagnetic field as well. So how that energy interacts with others' energy, interacting with cosmic energy, and how we make those things work. So as far as frequency and vibration goes, when that field around us is not operating at its core, or our emotion is affecting it, or is affecting it, physicality and our spirituality is affecting it, it tends to get bombarded with the energy of what's going on around the world. So when we hear about war and atrocity and things like that, that goes into our core. We start processing it in a particular way, whether it's good or bad, and then that starts either getting dense or puts holes in our field. So I guess energy to me is how that field, that EMF, or that the heart field, interacts with the world at large and everything else that's going on around it.
And I
Wow.
guess that's with what we've been seeing is Sid and I have been talking about energy and everything going on at the moment, about people, how people are feeling in the current state.
Yeah.
And you've also got this. I guess to me it's been a wacky. It's wacky to talk about spirituality, and it's just like you play it down because it's not really taught to us, or we haven't grown up with it, or been influenced at an early age from it. And it's like, they're off with the fairies or off with the angels, they're just flap around. But when you come into this self-awareness and how it actually comes in, and it can affect us when we're in front of people, talking to people, interacting with everything around us.
Yeah.
To get the message, because there's kind of this thing where it's wacky and it's off to the side. It can play a big part in the world around us, and how do we bring it together and
Or
get
a
it out there?
bridge.
Yeah.
A bridge, yeah.
How do we bridge the gap?
Yeah. How do you standardize it? How do you authenticate it? Okay, let me give you, so just quickly, energy is a language. Just like Morse code, just like body language. You see an artist's painting, that's the language they're using to tell you a story. Their language is through brushstroke, color, object, a couple of other different things for that artist to tell their story. They're using an energetic language. Morse code, sound, energy, another language. So energy, as far as how we interpret the world, is also a language. It happens to everyone every day. Don't let Hollywood romanticize it all and all of that kind of stuff. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the tension? Tension's not tangible. It's not a physical thing that you can grab, but you feel tension, right? Have you ever picked up on somebody's sorrow and, hey, are you okay? What made you ask that? How about when, let's talk about intuition as an energy. How about when the phone goes off and you were just thinking of that person? You go to leave the house, you get a niggling feeling that you're leaving something behind. You get halfway through your trip and go, that's it. I've left my report in my other briefcase. All of that happens to everyone every day, but nobody's been taught to pay attention to it as a particular language. And that's all it is. We need to learn how to interpret that energetic influence, impact, sign, symbol, feeling, thought. And once we do that, once we start learning that language, that's how we bring it in. That's how it starts to become authenticated. I'm using that word in place of normal because I don't like normal. Authenticated. And it starts becoming second nature. Everyone's intuitive. Everyone can interpret language. It's just a matter of not thinking that it's weird or woo-woo or strange. Learning what that language is and how to interpret it. Because, you're going to see an artist's painting a different way from what I'll see it. The same painting, you'll pick different things out of it. And that's that super information, invisible information highway that we have access to, that we can put down those messages from. We need to practice. We need to start just doing it, not second guessing it or thinking about it too much. Because once the conscious mind gets in the way, subconscious has no way of getting through. That's your bridge that you're talking about. Bridging to the subconscious and letting that speak and letting that do the interpreting for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we've got Rosemary's made a comment there. Andrew, there was nothing wrong with being off with the fairies, and totally, I get that. I get that now because I've realised I've been off with the fairies many times, and I get that now.
Yeah, look, sometimes it's fun to do. Just go off with those fairies and have a great time.
Karen Williamson says it's a very interesting topic because we don't talk about these things, right?
No. That's the other part to it as well. Part of bridging that gap is talk about it. Talk about your experiences. Don't just mark them off as, coincidence, or no, my mind's playing tricks on me, or whatever the case may be. Talk about them, share them. As I was sharing with you guys previously, the two reps that have come out, the window glazing reps that have come out, asked what I do. As soon as I mention it, they're just like a waterfall of, so this happened to me this time, and I do that, and I this, and my wife's into it, and you just got to give someone the key, and they unlock the door, and they'll just
the key. It's the key. Someone mentioned that to me today as well, as people that are out there getting to understand and have this intuition around it are the people opening or giving the key and guidance to what they're actually sensing, because we never really did a deep dive into this. We probably knew this like 445,000 years ago, and like I'm going all the way back into all these things that we can hear about, and because there's chats and talks about where civilization came from, and I can go into a deep dive on some parts of that, but we won't have time to do that today. It's just that the other part that you mentioned was hearing and feeling and sensing. It's all our sensories, because our sensories is what we feel in our physical world, that we're forgetting that there's actually more than just a physical world. So if I had to, like, I think I've explained this before, it's like the atom and everything with electrons. Electron is that energy that moves around everything, so it's moving around our whole body, that people don't understand that we are made of trillions of these atoms inside of our body that makes us whole as a person, but we're forgetting the small minute part that's inside our body, and that scientific side of it has actually proven that these energy fields and other things are created in what forms and keeps everything together. Yeah. So if we know that these things actually exist, it's now up to us to understand from our five senses, right? Our five senses are based on the real world, but then utilizing those exact same senses to sensing things that we don't normally understand. Now, what do you think of that? Could you add to that? It's like,
oh, yeah, absolutely. So yes, we are taught to lead with the five physical senses: taste, touch, smell, sound, and sight. We have a number of other senses that we're never really taught about or taught to explore. You know, people talk about the sixth sense, our intuition. That's one sense. But you also have another sense. Gravity is another sense in your body that you don't use your fingers to do. You know when you're upside down in water, right? So there's another sense. Temperature is another sense. You don't anything to feel temperature. So many other senses that we have too. The sense of pressure. You go down too deep in the water, you feel that pressure, right?
ooh.
So yeah, there's a whole number of other ones that aren't part of our physical world. They're more part of our energetic world.
It's not really taught, is it?
It's not really
Like, we know it exists, but we know these things exist. It's not really taught. It's not something that we talk about either.
No.
Put off as woo woo and gaga.
Woo and gaga, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we're not taught about them, but the other thing as well is we're not encouraged to explore them either. Because some of them you don't have to be taught about. Like, if we're saying taught from a book or taught at school or, you know, passed on from parents or things like that, we're not encouraged to explore the gaga and woo-woo. So it does keep us trapped within this confine of see it to believe it. You know, if I can't taste it, touch it, smell it, feel it, see it, and all that kind of stuff, then it's not real and it doesn't exist. But that's just not true at all. Developing
well, that's what we're seeing with. I'm sorry to stop there, but yeah, that's what we're seeing with a lot of the people around us now being more open-minded to it and asking what's the reason. Yeah. What's the reason for that, rather than just shutting it down, which I've been guilty of in the past. Just go, it's woo-woo. I'm just
yeah. Yeah.
But absolutely. What's the reason? What's the reason? And listening to what, you know, what's the reason? So
yeah, explore what that is. Try not to just rely on what you've been told or just the senses that you have relied on all your life. Go a step further. Allow for the gaga and the woo-woo. Allow for, you know, a sign and a symbol to actually be showing you something, because that's the universe speaking to you in an energetic language. Get far out, get freaky, let your imagination run wild, and don't feel ashamed of it. Don't think that it's wrong or that it's fantasy and all of that kind of stuff, because science is actually starting to catch up with a lot of these things now. You know, there's a huge study being done on reincarnation. If science didn't think there was anything to it, They wouldn't go that hard into exploring it. And this is part of this shift into the new age as well. We're realizing that science and spirituality are not mutually exclusive. They're two sides of the same coin. Spiritualists don't need proof. Scientists do. They like to formulate, map it out and all that. Our spiritualists go, nah, it exists. Nah, I know what that is. I know what that's telling me. I just know, blind faith. It feels right. Yeah. So it's getting
that'd
to
be
that.
great. That'd be great to see. That'd be great to see some of those studies coming out and then mix matching it, you know, and seeing what a spiritual futurist is talking about and science and bringing that together and exploring that. That'd be
There's a great book out called Real Magic, and it's written by a guy named Dean Rodden. And forgive me, his surname I think is Rodin. I might be just off on a bit of spelling with that. Real Magic, where he's a scientist and he's gone through and written his whole book on proving psychic ability, remote viewing, intuition, visions. Bruce Lipton is another one. He wrote a book called Biology of Belief. His work on epigenetics is groundbreaking. Basically, the premise of the book is the information that your cells receive and your DNA receive is largely due to external. Your DNA building blocks are not set in stone. It's just like the energy of thought can heal you. You know, it's not just science fiction or Hollywood or whatever. He's proven this through 50 years of work, 50 odd or less years of work. So that science is actually starting to back up what a lot of that gaga woo-woo stuff, you know, has been taught to people. It's becoming real.
It's like Joe Dispenza, right? With some of the things that he's putting in his book is how do we look at diseases that are being caused inside of our body. And if you guys have ever read, if you could ever read a book that will open your minds up, Joe Dispenza has a book on supernatural that I've read, and it just fully opened my mind, and it's blown my mind. Some of the research and the things that he's actually done is based on science. So look up Joe Dispenza. Supernatural is one of the best books that you could read that will really open everything up. Like just some of the projects that he started that's causing ripples and waves of energy by having a collective of people that just get to understand these things are changing all the chemical reactions inside of their body. And science of all these things have already been around for years. Like Buddhists have been doing it for years in mind over body, right? If you can get your mind or mindset to a particular level, your body will follow to what your mind already perceives in what we think is the future, because we can't really see the future. We can only ever be in the present time. So people that even delve into these things, we're taught to look at the past and the future, but we're forgetting to be in the present time. So that is one of the biggest issues that I see, that where people are getting stuck on, being stuck in the past or the present. And the best way to get to these levels is to be in the present moment. So I know we can keep talking about these things, and we'd love to have you back again with more of a discussion panel with lots of other people, maybe a Reiki master or someone with many different points of view that can add to these conversations and make this not the norm, because it make this just a normal discussion and a conversation that's going to open up the things of the future, or things that we have forgotten in the past that should be brought back into the forefront, that's going to help humanity actually move forward from all past traumas and heal and other things that we need to heal, like you mentioned before with DNA. And I'm just going to stop talking, but
there is so much more. There is, I mean, even Louise Hay championed Heal Your Body through realizing the metaphysical effects of your mental problems not, going unresolved, and emotional problems, and what part of the body they affect. Different things relate to different body parts. She championed that stuff in the 70s. But there's so much more to it, not just the DNA or the healing. There's how we work with energy and how we can pull energy from our future into our present, and how we work with that. I'm actually writing a book at the moment with regards to divine genius. I'm championing divine genius, right, which is basically our holy smarts, God consciousness, all of that kind of stuff. Just to touch on a little bit of that book that I'm working with, the act of desperation, just the energy around desperation, how that massively affects us, how we're borrowing energy from a future timeline that we might not fulfill, gets us in trouble, then we've got to pay for it later. That's all I'll touch on it for the moment now, because I don't want to give too much away from, I'm still writing that chapter kind of thing. But the act of desperation and how the energy of that just causes so much disruption and trouble and problems, So it's about borrowing energy from timeline as well, not just your DNA, not just your intuition or your psychic ability in the moment. There is stuff that it's really going to twist our noodle. We're going to start realizing these things as time goes on, and we slip further and further into the Aquarian age, where this stuff is just much bigger.
I feel with the and that's what this has come about, is that mental health. Everyone is it's a massive epidemic in itself, and we talk about mental health as like, I think the whole spiritual side of things hasn't really molded itself into mental health, but speaking and opening and listening about it, we feel there's actually a connector there that we can talk all about all the other ways that we treat mental health at the moment, and bringing that spiritual side in as well, and connecting that. And that can make us feel better when we're and grow our businesses and make us feel better and prosper. So. But yeah, we can keep talking, right? Like it's this whole new thing, and Anyway, we got some more comments there. We got more comments. We got time for comments, or
go for it. Go.
Rosemary, a study was released in the last few days regarding mystical experiences in heightened spiritual intelligence.
Ooh.
That sounds pretty. Like that's triple goo.
Yep.
Got an extra goo in there.
Send it to me anyway. Don't worry about him. And I'm reading Uncharted by Colette Baron Reid, a great book. I'm going to have to look that up. Have either of you even seen
I
this
have
book,
not
Uncharted?
No,
seen the book, but I know who Karen is talking about. I've got her Wisdom of the Oracle cards. She brought out a Wisdom of the Oracle deck of cards. By Colette Baron Reid. I'm pretty sure it's the same. Yeah, that's her, but not the book. But it sounds interesting. I love her cards, so I would definitely read that for sure. Yeah.
I'll look into that book, but we're going to have to sign off, and we'll definitely have more of these conversations and invite you back in more of a discussion point, because then we can open it up to something even bigger and greater, and try and educate the people that are watching this at the moment. So we'd love to have you back and educate people at the same time, and we're going to just grow the network from here onwards. So anyway, thanks for jumping on, Rick. Michael, do you have any closing statements you'd like to tell our viewers? Or
Look, it's hard to pick just one, keep watching, stay tuned to State of Mind segments. That's pretty much the best thing I can say. Catch up on more of this stuff. The other brilliant people that you've had on your Thursday sessions as well. Yeah, stay tuned to keep watching. Tell your friends to jump in and watch too, and we'll talk more about it. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Rosemary, for jumping on there too. Much appreciated.
Yes. Until next week, signing off again. See you then.